Hello and welcome to Stop Now, our weekly talk show. And I'm joined by Amar and also a special guest, George Brooks from Metta Association. Hi, George. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
We are doing good. Again, thanks for taking the time this week, like to talk to us. Hopefully, I think our audience will also remember we met almost a year before, if I'm not wrong. Is that
Yes,
right?
that's right.
Yes. So it's always been a pleasure to meet people again in our talk show. So, George, help me out. So with your introduction and how did you get into this field, like what you are doing and how it impacts your community and our society.
All right. How I originally got into this, and some people may know this, but I'll reiterate. About age 7, I noticed that I processed my emotions a little bit differently. At that point, I began to become aware of my own mental health issues. And long story short, I basically grew up with them and some several other issues and found myself at about age 40 having gone through divorce trauma, custody issues, addiction issues, mental health issues, chronic physical health issues, and began to heal myself. And in that journey, I formed Metta Association, which is my nonprofit. Of course, you can find out more information about the nonprofit at mettaassociation.org. And the purpose of Metta Association is to bring awareness to mental health, specifically Black mental health. And Metta Association stands on 3 tent poles: Black male mental health, fighting recidivism, and fatherhood. Not just Black fatherhood, but fatherhood in general. Ways we impact the community is that I do public speaking. We spread awareness. We initiate discussions that hopefully will bring forth change as far as spreading awareness. That's the first key to initiating change, is having those discussions, because not only in America, but in Black America, those discussions about mental health are just now beginning to be held. And one thing that I've noticed recently that has affected it is that we are coming out of a pandemic. The pandemic brought a lot of mental health issues to light in terms of people being isolated, the stress of living in a pandemic, because the pandemic affected everyone. It was not limited to any particular race, any particular social class, any particular demographic. So we were all affected. So we are all more conscious of mental health. And what Metta does is that we address those issues. We go out in the community. We speak to people. We work with people. One thing that we have started this week is that we are focusing on co-parenting. I realized through my observations in life and my personal experiences that one of the key tenets of mental health is having a stable, safe place for people to live and exist so that they can focus on their mental health. And no more areas is more prevalent than with our children. And the core of the nesting part of raising children begins with the parents. And many, dare I say, most or the majority of children nowadays are being raised in fractured households where the parents are not together. So it's important that parents co-parent and learn to put their personal feelings from those broken relationships aside for the benefit of the child, and not only for the benefit of the child, but for their own mental health and well-being. So I contacted a few schools, and they are very, very interested in the program that we proposed, and we are planning to introduce those into schools free of charge to the parents. And we're developing a co-parenting program that we hope will better what children have to experience nowadays and also benefit the parents. So Metta Association is stepping out in the forefront to pioneer some very interesting things into the community and into society that will not only benefit parents and children, but will hope to foster healthier mental health and bring some things to the forefront that will benefit society.
Well, that's a exciting work. I don't know how to put it, but our teammate host Nate, who always arrives late, he has also joined. So, Amar, before I hand it over to you guys, if you want to ask any question to George, go ahead. Nate, we started without you. You can jump in as well.
Okay.
Hello, Nate.
Like George, we met George before.
Yes. What's going on, George? How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine, sir. How are you?
Doing good, brother. Doing good.
All right. That's what I like to hear.
I guess my first question, George, would be, since the last time we connected, we talked about, I think one of the things we talked about on this show is how we're still kind of figuring out or discovering the effects of the last 2 years on people's mental health.
Right.
Is there something that you've seen, over the last year or so of how people have kind of dealt with what we all went through together? And now that we're kind of coming out the other side, are you seeing kind of the effects of that?
Yeah, we're kind of seeing the sentiment kind of settle and seeing who is really serious about affecting Black mental health and who's not. I'm kind of seeing where the trajectory of what I'm trying to do is going and who my supporters are and who my detractors are. So I'm planning now for the future as far as what my nonprofit Metta Association is going to do and what we need to do and who's on board and who's not. And in a lot of ways, that would be stressful to some people, but I look at that as a blessing because I know who my soldiers are now. Mm-hmm. And we have a better focus now as opposed to a year ago as to where to go and where the needed areas are and where we need to focus our efforts.
It's kind of like the old saying, I think like my granddaddy used to say, you can cut the grass, then you can see where the snakes are. And
right. Exactly. And not just the snakes, but the people who were being more opportunistic about certain things at the time, and who's really real and who's really not, and who has a real understanding of what's needed and who doesn't.
Gotcha.
And this word is really misconstrued in today's society. I like to use the word ignorant. People take that as a negative word. I look at that as a beautiful word because the word ignorant means that's an opportunity for you to become enlightened and informed. So I'm saying who needs a little bit of understanding on what they're trying to do, with the well intentioned, but the ill informed. So we're spreading education. What my nonprofit Metta Association is doing is enlightening people, especially since, I put it to you this way. A lot of people that are endeavoring to improve mental health, especially Black mental health, aren't really affected by mental health personally. They aren't living with it, and I am. I have diagnoses. So I think I'm well equipped to kind of articulate what goes on and what people go through. And that's been a blessing because people have a better understanding. So I really see if I continue my efforts and others like me continue our efforts, we really can affect some change because the problem with mental illness is that people are afraid of it and they don't understand it because many that are living with it can't articulate what they go through. It's hard for a person that's schizophrenic to really articulate what's going on in their head. So when I encounter someone dealing with a mental illness, I don't ask them what's wrong. I ask them, what are you feeling?
Okay.
And when they can, and that eases a lot, and I can kind of flow with what they're feeling and see what's going on. And I'm starting to see more and more people approach it that way, which I'm elated when I see that, because what I see is real progress, real growth and understanding and more compassion. And with that, we can really heal a lot of our trauma and improve our communication skills, because these are discussions, not only in America, not only as a society, but in Black society that we've never really had. Yes. And we haven't even scratched the surface of how deep this goes because we don't understand, or we refuse to understand that mental health is real. And I put this to most people that are resistant to what I'm saying. Not dealing with mental health is keeping us broke. It's keeping us disenfranchised. It's the key to everything. We have to deal with it first before we can deal with relationships with our women. We have to deal with us as men and what our insecurities and our trauma and things that have been indoctrinated into us since slavery and before.
Mhm.
Those things still linger, and I see it. And I'm sure if we look deep, not even that deep, we can see it. So we start there, and our relationships with our women improve. So household improves, our foundation, our families improve, our communities improve. We, the diaspora, our base can improve. And then we all improve. We can spread that to other communities, but it all starts with mental health, which in turn all starts with personal accountability. We take a lot of our trauma and we become victim minded. Oh, my mama did this. You can't control what other people do. All you can do is control how you respond and how you react and how you treat yourself. And many of us Black men have a problem with accountability. We become feminized. I feel like there's a war on masculinity, especially Black masculinity and Black manhood. But we are responsible for much of that. So we have to address that. Address the inner, then you can address the outer. And I know that sounds very lofty, because it is. This is not something in my lifetime I'll see any resolution or any generational change. I won't live that long, but at least I can throw my pebble in a river and see what ripples happen, and hope that it continues for my son, for your son, for their sons. And that's my endeavor, and that's what I intend to do with Metta Association.
And I think it's something that you brought up right there, George, where you talk about, like, I think mental health in general, when we're looking at just in the world and society, it's something that still is behind where it needs to be in terms of the conversation and in terms of people's understanding about mental health. But then when you specifically look at the Black community and the generational trauma, you know, that you talked about, and the fact that even in 2021, in 2022, after going through the pandemic and, you know, realizing how fragile, you know, all of this that we think is secure in life is, right? I feel like it's still a struggle for Black men in particular to talk about things like this. You know, I think I had a buddy that died last year because of COVID. And at his funeral, that was like the first time I think I remember seeing the guys in our friend group actually open and vulnerable. You know what I mean? And it's like, it shouldn't have to take somebody's death for you to be able to express how you're feeling.
Well, and you know, and let me say this first. Even though I emphasize Black mental health, that's because I'm me being a Black male. I got to clean my house before I help you clean your house. So let me get that out the way. But the thing is, as Black men, we're raised to perceive mental illness or any emotional outpouring as weakness. So we have that fear of mental illness. We have that fear of emoting because it's seen as weakness. And one thing is that it usually takes something like that. And you're right, it shouldn't. We should be able to emote and come together as men in our own solitude, in our own groups, and emote with one another. And that's the next thing that Metta Association is going to focus on, creating venues where Black men and men in general can come together and talk without fear of ridicule, without fear of feeling emasculated, without fear of being seen as weak or ostracized, where we can emote and we can talk and get those things out before they build up to the point where we have drug use, domestic violence, crime, things like that, because that's where all that starts. Now we have the solution. Now we know what's causing all these problems in our communities. Now the issue is, how do we deal with them? How do we remedy them? And not only in our Black communities, in all communities, for a long time, the problem was accessibility to information.
Right.
Disparity in education. We all have one of these now. There's no excuse. We have access to information. What do we do with it? So that's what's important. But we can't be afraid to emote anymore. We can't be afraid to let off that steam before it kills us, because right now it's killing us. I live in Dallas, but right now I'm in my hometown of Memphis on business. And if you know anything about Memphis, you can know what's going on here. And I'm trying to help my hometown. And I'm trying to help Dallas because I see the problems and I know the cause of it. It's broken homes. It's men being emasculated. It's men being feminized. It's women being masculine women. And that's a whole other issue because now you have Black women thinking, oh, I don't need a man. Yeah, you do. I can do it by myself. No, you can't because you've tried and look at what we got. Sorry. Single parenting doesn't work. It's necessary because it's what you have to do. But sorry, it doesn't work. And I say things that may be controversial, but it's the truth. We have too much pandering in our society. We have too much political correctness. All this woke stuff is killing us. We're digesting the wrong food and surprise when we end up with bad guys. You know, it's time for us to get back to some traditional values. It's time for us to get back to some family values. We got to get back to a tribal culture. Jim Brown talked about that years ago. I remember watching the interview. I was about 13 with him, and he talked about getting back to tribal culture. And that stuck with me to this day. I was 13 when I heard him say that. I'm 44 now. For that to stick with me for, I'm bad at math, 31 years, it must have resonated. Right. And we got to get back to that. Women have to stop this, and I don't put it all on women in this regard because they had to do it because we as men have failed. We have failed them. We have failed ourselves. Doesn't matter the cause. Doesn't matter if it was the white man. Don't matter if it was this. Don't matter if that. Fix it. Let's stop whining. Let's stop being women. Let's stop. I mean, not being women, but let's stop being feminized men and deal with our issues. Because when I dealt with mine, it made me stronger. And we have to just accept reality and fix it. Otherwise, we're going to be extinct. Right. That's where we're headed. A couple of weeks ago, we had a guy in here in Memphis that was just on Facebook driving around shooting people.
Yeah, George, I have a question to you.
Sure.
What do you say about human trafficking? How we can stop it? Yes.
With force. With force. It's slavery. Human trafficking is nothing but slavery. You know, and it's so prevalent now. If you look at social media, you see all kind of posts where I see, oh, that's what this is. This young girl is posting this. Oh, she's setting herself up for that. We have to attack it with force and eliminate it. Stop. I'm you know, we need task force. These wolves and coyotes that are trafficking people, stop them. If you got to shoot them dead. Stop it. The U.S. government has enough resources to eliminate a lot of crime, but crime is profitable to the government.
Yes. Yep.
They lock people capital. They set us up from youth in schools. They start labeling us. You know, they in some ways, and I'm probably not phrasing this in the proper way, so forgive me for that. But the government, some ways, doesn't want to stop crime. It's an economy for them. The prison system is privatized now. You know, they like having those bodies. And this, the reason they put many prisons in rural areas is because it provides jobs for people who ordinarily, it's the new coal mine. They provide jobs. And not only that, having those bodies in those areas helps them as far as districting for elections. It helps them. But they don't have a vested interest in really stopping crime. Law enforcement officers that get into it to genuinely help people, but there are some erroneous things in the system. So in many ways, poor minorities, mostly us, are cannon fodder for them. We're cattle, we're inventory. The reason why we're incarcerated, you're government property, because you're commodity. So, you know, I'm somewhat cynical as far as stopping such issues such as human trafficking, because I don't see the incentive to stop it on a genuine level. The war on drugs is not a war on drugs. The drug trade is managed, not. Can't stop it, but I don't think there's ever going to be stopped, because as long as people can profit off of it, it'll never stop. If money is involved, it'll never stop. As long as the government and those in power can make money on it, it'll never stop. The best we can do is try to keep ourselves as individuals out of it. That's all you can do.
Yeah, and help as many as you can along the way. But yes, that's one of the things we talk about a lot, George, is these issues. Like they are so massive when you look at them on their face. But I like what you said a little while ago about throwing a pebble in the river.
Right.
Because we can all do something, whether it's in our community or, in our friend group, our social circles, we can do something. We might not be able to solve everything in our lifetime, but we can bring awareness. We can talk to somebody. We can help one person, and that can change, something for that individual.
It could be as small as when, how sometimes you go to the grocery store and you're behind somebody, they're at the checkout, and they'll give the cashier hell. When I'm the next person, you know what I do? I stop and I say, you know what? That person was rude, but you're doing a good job. Have a good day. Little things, the most minute thing can change a person's day.
Yeah.
Because you never know what somebody else is going through. So it doesn't take, you don't have to start a nonprofit. You don't have to do what I'm doing. But if you can just tell somebody, have a good day, you never know. You never know. We all have to do something, because if you're not doing something, then you're part of the problem.
So what is, you talked a little bit about your journey, George. Can you, for the audience that might be, seeing you for the first time or watching you for the first time, can you tell us a little bit about that journey, and maybe that can give some inspiration, to somebody out there that's watching that might be kind of in a similar position to where you were back before you started your journey?
Well, about 4 years ago, I moved to Dallas from Memphis. And when I left Memphis, I went through a lifetime of mental health issues, complicated family life. I'm estranged from my family, which is no big deal to me because they were toxic. Oh, this is another thing. Well, I get to that after I tell my story. But I was addicted to cocaine, depressed, physically broken, mentally broken, financially broken. So when I left Memphis, I got in my car, loaded what I could in my trunk with my two sons, and went to Dallas with $1,500 in my pocket. Since then, I've been sober since then, built myself up physically and morally and intellectually as much as I could. And what that took was a lot of me stripping myself down to nothing, and reading and thinking and observing and not talking so damn much. Because when you're talking, you're not learning. That's something we as Black men kind of do. We kind of talk at the wrong time instead of listening and observing. And I learned so much. And I began to learn who I was, not who the world wanted me to be, not who society wanted me to be, but who I was, and focus on how I could better people. And I developed a relationship with God. Not saying everyone has to do that. I'm an egalitarian. Hey, whatever goes for anybody goes, as long as you're not hurting anyone else. But my chosen spirituality led me to God. I'm spiritual, not religious. The spirit is of God, religion is of man. But in the past 4 years, I've built my nonprofit. I've met some amazing people, and I've gotten a chance to do things I've always dreamt about doing, and I'm still continuing. But that took a lot of work. It took me getting in therapy. It took me working with my psychiatrist to get on the right meds. It took me taking action and being accountable moment by moment, because I am bipolar. I do have PTSD. I do have DID, and it's hard. There's some days I just don't want to get up, but I try to do something every day. And to go from someone who's basically, for all intents and purposes, The Walking Dead. See, I was so bad off in my neighborhood when I was here. That was my nickname, The Walking Dead. That's what everybody referred to me as, The Walking Dead. I would walk to the store, they say, hey, Walking Dead, and I would actually respond. That's how broken I was. So to come from there to where I am now, that was on me. Nobody else did that but me. And we as Black men have to have that mindset. Nobody can do it for you but you. Not a woman, not money, not a job. You can go and get all the Lambos you want. You can go get all the women you want, but it's not going to fill that void. Okay? It's not going to happen. And you have to isolate yourself to do that. Like, one thing about addiction is A lot of people have, the reason a lot of people get stuck in addiction is they're trying to get off of drugs for the wrong reason. Oh, I'm trying to do this for my family. I'm trying to do this for my kids. I'm trying to do this for my wife. No, you have to do it for yourself. You can't, if you do it for your kids, you will fail. If you do it for your wife, you will fail. I learned that the hard way. You have to be selfish to survive. And I don't mean selfish in the sense of, oh, give me the biggest cut of steak. No, selfish in the sense that I have to worry about myself and my self-care before I can help anyone else.
Yes.
Just like when you board a plane, they tell you, put the mask on yourself first before you take care of your child. Because if you don't take care of self, what is your value to the world? What can you offer? You're broken.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, you know, that's a big part of my journey. And a lot of that came through reading, prayer, introspection, being physically active, being mentally active. And I got myself to the point where I could see, I had such a clear vision of who I was. I could see where I needed to go. And then I was able to do what I'm doing now. So to kind of, you know, sum up what you were asking, that journey is still ongoing. It never ends. But maturation never ends. Learning never ends. Growth never ends. And I think a lot of us as men, we fool ourselves to thinking, well, I'll get to a point where I'll have it all figured out. You won't. I could be 96 years old and still learn something I didn't know. Be open emotionally, be open intellectually. Don't be so closed off. You know, like we have a thing, like, you notice how when we take our driver's license pictures, it's like, no, it's okay to smile. It's all right. I show you my drive. I did the same thing. Why? Why do we have to be so standoffish? It's because we insecure. It's because we afraid. We have to put up this front like we hard. The thing we hadn't figured out, people see through that. That's weakness. To me, a guy that acts extra tough and extra hard and barks loud, I see it as weakness because I see his insecurity.
Right.
And that's emotional, you know, that doesn't lead me to believe that he's emotionally intelligent. And that's something that's just drilled in us from youth in school. You notice how when we were in school, the bad kids were labeled instead of being addressed. And what happened to a lot of those kids? A lot of those kids that I grew up with that were labeled, they got records.
Yeah.
Not because they were bad kids, but a lot of them had emotional issues that weren't addressed. A lot of them had, you know, home issues that weren't addressed. Not that their parents were bad, but they things they just didn't know.
Right.
You know, so that's why I'm doing my co-parenting course. That's what Metta Association is doing, is to help parents. I have a myriad of programs in mind. Now, the only problem, and I'll just be honest with you, my biggest problem with my nonprofit is funding.
Yeah.
So that's why if you go to mettaassociation.org, you can donate. I have a Cash App. You can donate. And people hate that part. and I understand it, you know. But if you can donate $5-10, that goes a long way. It really does, because I have to pay for these programs. You know, I you know, there's so many nonprofits. I've met so many wonderful people in our communities that are trying, small churches, and they just don't have resources. But you know, you see so many of us complain about the state of our communities, and when someone's trying to help, we don't want to support them financially, but we're buying Coach bags. You know, we're on Facebook with stacks of money. We're on Facebook talking about getting this and getting that and flogging, and I don't know what the slang is, but you know, showcasing our material wealth. You know, but we have no investments. You know, we don't have money in the bank. Our kids don't have college funds, but we're buying $300 bags. We're not supporting our community. Where they do that at? How well has that worked out? And we're kind of the only culture that really does that. If you look at other cultures, they don't do that.
Right.
And that's why they thrive, and we're drowning. So that's just the honest truth.
And I think, and I think that when you look at that, and you know, to your point about the funding, because that is something that a lot of nonprofits have to deal with, and I'm sure JK is going to have a link in the description on the YouTube page, so that the folks that are watching, they can support, because you are doing good work out there, George. But getting back to that point, I think, well, two things. Number one, what you said about emotional maturity, I think is a big thing. Right. And particularly, you know, with everybody, of course, but also when we're speaking about in our community. I think there is something to that with that emotional maturity that you spoke of, which also kind of leads to, if I'm emotionally immature, I'm going to go for the instant gratification of the nice car or the nice bag or the shoes, you know, versus investing in myself and investing in my community.
Right. Because we aren't, society has kind of made sure that we get the scraps. We get the scraps as far as everything, as far as any kind of, especially as far as education and information. We aren't taught about investing in school. We aren't taught about credit. We aren't taught. That's why so many of us have such bad credit. And that's why in our communities, we're victims of predatory lending. We have rent-to-own places. We have pawn shops on every corner. Liquor stores on every corner. You drive
title loans,
loan places, payday loans. Predatory lending everywhere. So we aren't taught about credit. And one thing I've learned, without credit, you can't do a lot. You know, you're kind of tied. You're restricted. So we need to, you know, it's not only emotional intelligence and maturity, it's also fiduciary intelligence and maturity we need to bring to our neighborhoods. And, you know, I'm talking about financial maturity, but I'm a mental health advocate because I see the correlation.
Yes.
We have to see the links. We have to have a roadmap. Before we can improve race relations, we need to deal with our mental health as men, because we aren't equipped to improve race relations because we're divided. And, you know, you know, people are critical of Black Lives Matter. I don't see where they're doing anything to deal with mental health. I'm critical of them. I'm critical of a lot of our leaders. We have leaders. Nobody's equipped to do it. Nobody's really worthy to do it. I don't see. We have to lead ourselves. You know, you as a man, you're responsible for yourself. Now, if you get yourself right and you find some like-minded people and y'all want to link up and do something, that's great. But right now, hold down on the rah-rah and fix yourself.
Right.
You're not going. Here's the thing: if you're gonna drive the Indy 500, change your oil first. You know, that's what I'm saying. We got to change the oil before we get on the track. And there's so much of what I'm trying to do because I've seen and experienced so much. You know, I'm happy because I see the opportunities.
Right.
And all the pain and trauma and tears and sweat and literal blood I've shed over my life that would have broken most people. The general consensus, I shouldn't be alive. But it's a blessing because I can use that pain to help people. And through by doing that, I'm healing myself. You know, and that's what I'm trying to do. But we just got to get on. We got to fix ourselves as individuals. We got to do that as Black men, because the stuff I'm seeing in my neighborhoods, in my communities, it's nothing but continual death. It's death. It's not just economic disenfranchisement. It's not just broken homes. It's not just, you know, bad kids. It's not just all the stuff that we see that depresses us, that embarrasses us, it shames us. It's death. That's what it is. So that's why I formed Metta Association. That's why I'm a mental health advocate. That's why I focus on mental health, because that's where it starts. And people need to get on board with it and realize it's what it is and stop having their head in the sand and thinking, oh, it's the white man. No, it's not. Here's the thing about the white man. When has that not been a problem for us?
Since day one.
Since day one. Okay, if you walk into school and you know the same dog gonna bite you, then you find a different way. It's never gonna change for us. No matter how much kumbaya and woke you want to be, it's never gonna change for us. So find a different way. You can circumvent that If your mental health is strong and your mind is strong, it'll never go away, but you can circumvent it. You can make it work for you. There are ways to make racism work for you. I know how to do it because I've done it. I would like to teach people how to do it. I would like to teach young Black men and old Black men, hey, you can make that redneck your best friend if you do this, but I'm not ready to tell people how to do that because they're not ready for that.
Right.
I have a lot of wisdom and experience to kind of tell people, but we had to start at square one. But I need people to get lined up for square one so we can walk this journey together as a people and then have everyone, every race, every creed, every color walk with us together. We got to fix home first before we fix the neighborhood. And people are just hesitant to do that because they're afraid, especially us men. We don't believe in therapy. Why? Because I ain't finna tell no white person on my business. But you tell everybody at the barber shop and social media all your business. What's the difference?
Right there, right there. So I'm glad you came back to that, George, because I did want to ask you, because I know a lot of people that I talk to in the community are very skeptical about therapy and you know, the mental health experts. Did you have a barrier when you first went to therapy? Like, was there that skepticism, that doubt, that uncertainty, or was it something that you kind of took to immediately?
There was I was open to it. On a scale of 1 to 10, there's probably 1% skepticism because of that old indoctrination that was in me. Because it's in all of us. If anybody tell you I don't have, no, it's in all of us. But I went into it with an open mind because I knew it was needed. I went into individual therapy and family therapy.
Okay.
So I did both. And it changed my life. I found a Black male therapist. You can pick your therapist. Find your Black male therapist if you're more comfortable with that. He changed my life. Dr. Sekou Frazier in Dallas. Amazing therapist. Still with him to this day. Find a therapist that you're comfortable with and work with them. Give it 10 sessions. If you can't afford it, there are therapists that will work with you on a sliding scale. There are different resources. You don't have an excuse because I'm so tired of people saying I can't afford it. But you can afford all the BS you want. It's matter what you want to do. It's matter what you intend to do. You know, and people put, I'll deal with this, I'll put it on the list. It doesn't matter what you prioritize. It doesn't matter what you put on the list. It doesn't matter what you make important. It's a matter of what you actually go out and do.
Yep.
So your healing, if you're miserable in life, it's probably your fault because you're not taking actions to improve that. If you're depressed, do something about it because no one else is going to do that for you. No one else is going to make you happy. And I fell into the trap years ago of being a Black man sitting here thinking, oh, I'm not, you know, somebody else is going to have to do something for me to get off my butt and do something. Something external is going to have to come in for change to happen in my life. No, it took something internal. We're constantly, you have to make your own breaks, make your own opportunities. We're already disenfranchised. The chances of someone discovering you is very unlikely unless you put yourself out there to be seen. And that all ties into mental health. And that's what I think blows a lot of people's minds because I'm able to make the correlation between the most weird, abstract situation they're dealing with and their mental health because it's all interconnected.
JK, Amir, any questions for George? I don't want to take up all the time.
Yeah, George, thank you again. So I just brought that up, like your site as well. So my question is like, so you talked a lot about mental health and your organization does provide any kind of programs for people who go through this kind of issues. I know, like you mentioned, like getting help from the therapist will solve these things. So what is your final comment on before we wrap up this session? Like, so where do people go, right, when they decide to address these issues?
Well, they can contact us at mettaassociation.org if they're looking for help. We can refer them to a network of people that I deal with. I do know several licensed therapists that are willing to work with people if they have economic barriers or things like that. Our business number is 214-810-6518. I actually manned it personally. You can reach me directly. So if you don't get me, I'm probably on another call. I answer 24 hours a day in case someone needs something urgent. So if you don't get me, leave a voicemail, shoot a text. I will get back with you. We do take donations on our site. There's a link there for that. And we also have a Cash App. Is it okay if I give that out?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Our Cash App is the $ Metta Association, METTA Association. And we are in great need of funds with the programs and initiatives. So please, please donate. That's really, really, really needed. So that's our information there. You can respond to us, well, not respond, reach out to us. We'll do everything we can to help you. If there are resources that we do not have, we will refer you to people that can help you. I've gotten calls from people in the UK. I've been able to refer them. I've gotten calls from people in Africa. I've been able to refer them. So we will do everything in our power to help anyone. It doesn't matter your race, age, color, political affiliation, sexual orientation. We don't care. We will help anyone that calls. And you can email me at gbrooks@mettaassociation.org. That's on the site as well. If you email me, I will try my best to help you. So we're really an egalitarian organization, which means we'll help anyone. But our emphasis is on Black men. So Black men, if you're looking for information, if you have questions, if you have concerns, if you just want to know more about getting help and how mental health has affected you, reach out to me. I will talk to people directly because I feel as though I have to be in the community. I am the community. I am part of the community. I'm a product of the community. So that's really my focus and my aim, and my heart is really in this. I've dedicated my life to this, so I really want to help people.
Good work, George. And I think real quick, because it just occurred to me while we were going over the information and how the viewers can reach out and get connected with you and the work that you're doing, that we are kind of on the home stretch for this year, for 2022.
Right.
And a new year is right around the corner. And so I'm wondering, George, in terms of finishing out this year and starting 2023, like what are you looking most forward to, as we kind of end this year?
All right. Well, 2022 has been a transitional year for me. What I'm gearing up for next year, developing the co-parenting program to launch at my Vision Prep school here in Memphis. We're going to try to take that nationwide, working with Chanel Baptiste, who's a brilliant therapist, actually working with my ex-wife to help develop this because we've mastered the art. Well, not mastered. We've really gotten good on co-parenting, and we had a very tumultuous divorce, but we're good friends, and she's a great mom. So we're working on developing this program. I'm working on writing and directing and producing a documentary in Africa called A Feast, which explores the phenomenon of mental health and how it's perceived over there, because the way it's perceived over there is totally different. And I feel like it really needs to be seen. So I'm working on producing and directing that. It's already in pre-production. I've got an executive producer, Andy Costa, who's an Emmy award-winning director, raising funds for that. So if you want to donate to that, we have a GoFundMe up soon. You can donate at mettaassociation.org, trying to finance that, doing that all by myself. Not all by myself, but on my own. And God inspired me to do that. Early 2000 January, I'm going to Austin to speak to the legislators there about some mental health policies and some things like that. So it's going to be a very busy year next year. All these efforts are going to go to improve people's situations, spread awareness about mental health, do some things to really help initiate and bring forth some change, some positive change, not only in the Black male diaspora, but in all communities.
All right. Thank you so much, Josh. That's wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, George, for taking time out to join us this week. Thank you, Amer, for joining us as always, JK, and most importantly, thank you to everybody watching. And again, for all the information about what George is doing or what we're doing here at Stop Now, check the links, check all the socials, and as JK would say, bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye for
Thank you, everybody. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.